everybody. Welcome back. But kids have finished school or about to finish school. I know I'm very excited for mine to finish. So first thing we need to do is approve the minutes. Can I get a motion to approve? And then next item is the update.
Right. Yeah, well, good to see everybody. Welcome. Thank you for being here. So for our agenda today, we're gonna try to move pretty quickly through these first parts, including the report I'm about to give. We've got a lot of great stuff. We have Kevin O'Jay here, Director of the brand new Department of Housing and Land Management. Who's going to share with us about plans for Revitalization Center and I think some stuff we've talked about before. And then we have a field trip to Metro Grow, which is a OER first. I suspect it's a city and county of Honolulu, like commissioner first, like a live stream.
That's awesome.
Field trip. So innovating today. Slide.
Oh, and Amy's son is graduating from
Georgetown
Wow.
Law School.
Yes.
Yeah, so she is away celebrating. Perfect. All right, so just a reminder on the commission's priorities for 2025. Sorry, I'm going to cut out the middle person. A mahalo for signing up for another 5 years.
5 years.
Wow. I was like, is that a typo?
It's real. It's in writing. So yeah, just thank you very much. Like, really appreciate all the service that all of the commissioners provide and all the guidance that it provides to our day-to-day work. I know that we've been leaning on folks heavily. Alyssa's been asking for help with the Idea to Biz initiative, which she's going to talk about in a little bit, and really none of these things, which down here inside is done. I just wanted to share an update on chapter 38. So we've talked about this here before. I think chapter 38 is the section of the revised ordinances of Honolulu that talks about the leasing of city properties, and Department of Land Management folks had proposed some changes to chapter 38 that would streamline the leasing of those properties. They incorporated some economic development components there that essentially would allow us to factor in economic development value when we're considering the leasing of those properties. So it's going through the process. I don't know, Kevin, I might even ask you at some point to share your insights on where things are at, but it hasn't been a totally smooth road. So there was a bill that was introduced. There's now an amendment that's been proposed. I don't yet have a clear sense of where everything is going to land. But for OER's part, our vision is that we would very much like to be involved in the leasing of properties to support economic development, small business initiatives in Honolulu. And so we've been thinking through, well, what does that look like at OER? How can we contribute there? So we'll be looking at things like feasibility studies. So this Revitalization project that Kevin's going to be talking about, what are the opportunities there to create co-working spaces, for example, small business incubators, other types of support, identifying those strategic uses for city properties, reaching out to develop partnerships with folks like the and just continuing to expand on the partnerships that we have. In the working on the solicitations, the implementation, the program management and oversight. So, you know, so much of this work is going to be done through partnerships with nonprofit organizations. It's not like OER is going to be there doing the hands-on business incubation work. It'll be through partners.
Do we know, Kevin, maybe knows, do we know what the emphasis of the was? Emphasis, like, why did they take out that
Yeah,
economic?
we're trying to do more faster. Yeah, and so procurement is one of the biggest hangups that we have in the city. And so when we started looking at it, we actually went to the governor's office in October and worked with the governor to amend the emergency proclamation, it was the 11th EP, to allow us to issue requests for qualifications versus requests for proposals, particularly for land development transactions, because RFPs are really difficult. And it's really difficult to get an apples to apples bid from developers. This is very complex transactions, as you've seen them. So an RFQ allows us to basically put a solicitation out to select the best qualified candidate and then negotiate with them around the transaction to come up with documentation that works for both sides. That using RFQs, we went out with our first one in at the end of January for 4 properties that had been in the city's inventory for some of them for decades. And we were able to get those out of the street for 4 properties. We got 20 bids inside of a month and a half. And so we shaved approximately a year off of the procurement process. So as a result of that, Kat Tash, Director Tash, started working on a complete rewrite, also rewrite of Chapter 38. That's what's before council. So that was the piece.
So I was just asking, why did Tommy Waters take the economic development portion out of the bill? Is there a reason for that?
He's not a strong supporter of economic development. That's a state role versus a city role.
It's somewhat speculation. I'm trying to meet with them in a couple days to get a better sense of what that's about.
Where are the properties? Like, do you have a map? Like, I'm so curious, like how many city properties he's talking about?
There is a map. There's 10 that we're going to go out with this year. But halfway out the door. 6 going out at the end of this month.
And ask the 20 bids that you received, or qualifications you received, how many of those are for nonprofits?
Good portion of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say it's 6. No, yeah, just half a dozen.
Really think Greg's here. Well, I'm glad to hear you guys are moving so fast. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's good.
So just to paint a better picture of like the types of uses that we're thinking about, these would include things like innovation hubs, things that would support advanced manufacturing, foster collaboration between UH students, businesses, community, and the military. I mentioned before co-working spaces. There's the potential to maybe even have like city offices, like OER's office, co-located with co-working spaces, so we can just have a closer connection to entrepreneurs. Commercial kitchens. The city already has in its inventory some commercial kitchens that are underutilized. How can those spaces be better utilized to support local agriculture, value-added agriculture products? The business incubation work, perhaps having temporary like retail spaces, pop-ups, to allow small business retailers to get a footing. Maybe even using some of those city properties as warehouse spaces, we can encourage from new owners to meet it. And then business and community service centers, like just built into those spaces.
Just to get a quick understanding, so basically all of these buildings are vacant, so they're not bringing any revenue into the city, they're underutilized, and then how would you, I mean, I get, it's great helping entrepreneurs and whatever, but at the same time too, the city needs to bring in revenue as well, correct? Or
Well,
not?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. So I think it's a mix. I think there are currently some buildings that are vacant or not filled to capacity. And sort of chapter 38 as a whole. So not just the economic development pieces, but the rest of it as well is intended to facilitate better use of those spaces. Part of it is just streamlining the process, making it easier to enter into leases with folks. Part of it is, in the past, a lot of the leasing out of properties has been based purely on a bidding model. How much are you gonna, highest bidder wins. And so I'm afraid I personally don't have an in-depth understanding of all the nuances, but the general concept is this economic development work is valuable. It's not dollars into the city's coffers, but it does promote our mission. So how do we incorporate that value into the analysis of who we're leasing properties to? Okay, so I thought I had one more chapter 38 slide, but I guess that's it. I don't know. Any other questions, insights? I also wanted to update you on just the funding for our work. You've seen this slide before probably a few times. The only significant update that we have is a sad one. Just as I'm sure we've talked about, you've been reading about the federal funding cuts that are happening. We've suffered our first major casualty there. We didn't lose the full amount of, so this is feed and digital equity. We lost the digital equity funding, $1 million. So Constancio has been leading up this project, has been working very hard on the planning component of it for quite a long time. And as of right now, that money is gone. Talking with the state about the possibility of appealing, but it's pretty likely that that we're not going to be able to have that funding in the future. So we still have a little bit of funding available. I think it's the 0.118 million left for that broadband equity work, but it is a pretty big hit. Not a hit to OER's operation or staffing, but just the impacts that we can have in the community.
So what do we lose in the community as a result of that? Like, what would that have funded?
Does anybody know this better than I do? It would have funded things like computers for lower income families to be able to access internet. That's the big, I think one of the bigger items. Denise, do you know more?
A lot of the components in the plan, Olin and everyone really focused in on doing trainings also to Kapuna and to certain, underserved neighborhoods and communities. To utilize services, right? And to kind of implement. So that's of course it. Constancio is, as we speak, at a digital equity conference in Arizona. And so he's representing Hawaii. No other counties are going. No other staff are participating in this conference. And so I'm certain that he's going to come back with some more updated information and resources to share.
Olu probably understands where you live.
Well, I was gonna ask if anybody's looking for alternative funding to cover the funding that was lost.
Yeah, this is pretty new, so I don't know the answer to that. And I apologize, I don't even have the broader implication. So I know you have been involved in a lot of the broadband long ago. My understanding, Olin, is that so there's been significant investment in like trying to improve service for broadband. And the things that we were focused on were ensuring that people could actually access that service with the training, with the actual hardware.
That's a big push for rural communities, especially near islands, to get access to broadband.
The kids start school.
Yeah, so I don't know what the other counties got cut, I'm sure they got cut too, right, but that's really a huge part of it.
It was state funds.
You know, it's just short note, like Purple Maya, we teach statewide. There's so many kids that don't have internet at home, don't have computers, and it's shocking.
Yeah.
Are any of the other ones at risk? Like, you got the word equity somewhere?
Yeah. Just
What
turn
do
your
we
trade.
need to flag?
Um,
By one minutes.
Technically, yes, SSPCI is pretty much around DEI. It's, ESPs and steady-owned businesses, but we haven't gotten any word that that funding is in jeopardy so far. We do have the first tranche in. I think we're working on the second one, so far we're okay.
yeah, I mean, just it's not dissimilar from what you're seeing everywhere else in the world. Like there's just so much uncertainty. It feels like most of this should be safe. But there's no way it's going now for sure.
And the last question, there's that 2 states, so that money will be returned to the state, or?
Yeah, we should probably just take this off the slide at this point. So the rent relief program, I'm sure you've heard a ton about it. OER, Denise in particular helped facilitate getting close to $300 million to our community to support them in response to the pandemic. And that support has been ongoing for a long time. Just winding it down, the spending deadline for those funds is this September, the end of September. And so we're just ensuring that the small percentage of remaining funds gets put to good use. So we just, as we speak, probably there's a memo that's gone to other folks that's going to return some funding to the state, a little over $4.5 million of the remaining funds that we got through the state. The city also has some funds that are unexpended, which we're planning to also send to the state. Both those pots of money, it'll be close to that 11 million, 10 million. The numbers changed a little bit over time. But the remaining money will go to support affordable housing development, which is great. It's going to go to Hawaii Public Housing Authority. Kevin actually helped out with this, just making sure that it gets put to good use.
One note about the rent relief program, there was a scathing podcast from the folks at Planet Money about how bad this was run around the country. It's just too difficult. So they talked about the structural challenges of rent relief, but that didn't happen here. So I think under Denise's watch, like this program worked, thrived, and bring that on. So I just a shout out to Denise and her team, because apparently it was really difficult to run this
You,
program.
your team.
No, we were like the money folks, but it was like a brutal podcast about how this is broken. Like this whole thing is fundamentally broken. I don't know how it worked, but it's pretty amazing that it worked. So that's a shout out to them. We are.
Yeah, absolutely. And
I
my
mean, the difference, I'm just gonna say, because I moved from the mainland, from California to here, and I saw the way that the programs were being run in California. And it was just sort of like lawlessness. And so I was so grateful when I came here, Olin, and we had a dashboard and we had just the tracking and accountability and transparency. just was stunning, so, thank you.
All the way to the public.
Yes.
Transparency.
Yes.
Do you guys ever get to like share this to other states or and like, is there, I mean, I don't know government. But I would think this makes sense, right? What works, and then let's just showcase what works. Right.
So, I know this happened in Wayne's experience, so in my prior life, like touched this, this issue a bit and definitely saw, there was nationwide acknowledgement of how well Honolulu did, how well Hawaii did. A lot of it actually, it was very inspiring to me. A lot of it happened even before this money got to the state. It was when we got the, I think, SLFRF funds, just general funds from the federal government to spend in COVID response. The state legislature decided that we're going to allocate a significant portion of that toward rental relief. James Toshiba, I don't know if folks in here know him. At the time, not affiliated with any kind of governmental institution. He was like brought on by folks at the legislature to help bring together a buoy of folks, really broad spectrum of perspectives, people in government, people in business, people in nonprofits. Catholic Charities, who was one of our partners, was an important participant there. We had folks who were or had recently experienced houselessness, so who could speak to the delivery of the funds and talk about their experience with trying to access other programs in the past, so that our rent relief program could be structured in a way that was more effective. And it really paid off. And I hadn't, all my years working with government and policy, I'd never seen anything like that where there was that broad collaboration. It's one of the things that is part of OER's DNA, I think, it values is that like broad collaboration, bringing people together. And so, yeah, I think this is a great example of the positive results that happen.
Has there been a discussion internally at OER about, DEI? Because to me, OER is all about DEI. And so are you going to be at Columbia? Or are you going to be at Harvard? Are you going to be Paul Weiss? Or are you going to be Perkins Coie? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I'm looking at you.
Yeah.
But I think that hasn't happened. Like I would be all for staying on principle, basically saying F you. No, I mean, not in those words, but stay on principle and suffer whatever consequences, but deal with it somehow. And that's how you evolve, But if you give in, then you evolve to something else. So that's what I would advocate for. So,
Greg,
yeah.
I think it's unavoidable actually that we stay on target and on principle because it's so much a part of OER's like DNA, our values. I mean, when you look at our programs and like the focus on small business and the small businesses that we're really able to support in a significant way.
Well, underserved.
Yeah.
I would double down on DEI if I were the city. Because Olin was talking about, how many times do we say equity? The idea that maybe some people sanitize their stuff, but I would go the other way, frankly. I think the tide's going to turn eventually, but it won't if people don't understand.
I'm curious to see when they come to Hawaii, they look at our legislature, like, what do they see? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what do they see? Like, we all.
Not enough white people.
They're asking for DEI on their part. So.
Well, they can take away federal funding, but they can't. So, anyway, but has that discussion occurred as a policy matter within OER? Because, these things keep coming up.
We haven't had in-depth discussions here among staff beyond, like, it hasn't changed our work.
No, not at all.
We have shared some information about in terms of like grant proposals, federal grants. Share information about what we've received from others, about like words to try to avoid.
I'm sorry, you've
We
been
have
trained to avoid certain words?
We have received like information about words to avoid in federal grant proposals. We have not, to my knowledge, like gone through and tried to sanitize our website or our communications or change the way that we do. Still very focused on our core values and mission.
So I take that's a no. Okay.
I was
That's
thinking
fine.
the mayor
No, I
would
just
have to
wanted to know.
direct you guys. if he
We
wanted
do
to.
operate under some constraints. I mean, so I don't feel, again, with my newness, I don't feel super well qualified to talk about this. I have been coming from an organization that is hyper-focused on equity. And like it is at the core of the Hawaii's mission. I'm pretty impressed by how our administration responded and not picking fights, but also not altering the approach and not compromising values. The things that mattered before continue to matter today. I apologize because I promised Kevin that we started at 12:30. I promised you all that I would get through this pretty quickly. I haven't quite lived up to that. Just wanted to briefly mention that we have some additional like interns and support coming up. I think a lot of this has been shared with you before, so I'm going to skip over it unless anybody has any questions. Hand it over to Lisa.
Yeah, so I'll be quick too. Idea to Biz applications are open for a couple more weeks now. As of this morning, we've had 59 submissions. Yeah, super excited about that. And they really range from all different business ideas. So really excited to share those once the applications close. We've had 4 earned media spots as of today: KITV, Hawaii News Now, Spectrum. We also did Councilmember Agi Tolba's radio show as well. And super excited for you commissioners to also participate in mentoring and in the selection committee. So things are just moving forward with that. And so any quick questions for Idea to Biz?
Yeah, just shout out to Alyssa and her team for making this happen. It's super exciting to see it going.
And then stay open Oahu. We're underway with the procurement, as mentioned. It is a long process. But while we are waiting for everything to go through, we have been actively engaging local partners in the community and trying to initially map out what the ecosystem of support looks like for businesses under disaster preparedness and resiliency. And we also have our outreach team doing some targeted outreach in the community to assess businesses' awareness and preparedness for disasters, really focusing on the micro businesses and very small businesses that maybe haven't been surveyed quite as much to figure out where the greatest needs are in terms of awareness and preparedness. Questions? Thank you.
It's all in there. Yeah, thank you.
So he's going to talk about the merging of the departments.
There's just a couple more.
Oh,
items.
oh,
There's the check-in with Greg.
Yeah, I'm on here today.
Can we, would you okay if we skip that and have Kevin fill us some words? He's probably got some.
Oh, okay.
keys, but that's
We meet up later?
Come
or-
back to it.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Okay, okay.
Hi, I'm Kevin Ogier. I'm the Director of the Department of Housing and Land Management for the just overtaken ocean safety as the newest department in the city. We're, as of today, 14 business days old. So I'm really excited about that. When Mayor came into office, there was one person in the Mayor's Office of Housing that was coordinating both homeless and housing functions for a population of 1 million people. That obviously wasn't sustainable, and here we are. So we wanted to change that in the state of the city. The mayor made a point that he was going to reorganize the housing functions in the city. And we've done that. We finally got approved by city council. So effectively first, we're a new department. We've got 51 FTEs, 51 approved positions. We've got to fill about 25 of those. So we're halfway staffed. We'll have budget in July, and we're looking forward to bumping people up.
Sorry, Kevin.
It's okay. I can fill out. I can put some more
Can
forward.
we kind of talk about why the administration decided to merge the departments?
Yeah, so we looked across the board at what we had. In 1998, we had a Department of Housing and Community Development that got blown up because it was kind of a standalone for government. And threw the baby out with the bathwater, took all the housing functions and dispersed them across the city. And it was like that for 30 years. So all the DNA around how to do that, all the knowledge base, all the technical expertise was gone. So when we looked at the two primary places where the housing functions were, it was land management and Department of Community Services. And we kind of made a decision that it seemed to make more sense to bifurcate those functions so the Department of Community Services could focus on homelessness and supportive services. Because I'm an expert in real estate development and finance, but I don't know anything about the social services required to maintain and assist on most vulnerable populations. That's a whole different skill set. So we thought it would be more efficient if we put the technical expertise around acquiring land, development, land, finance, land, managing buildings in one area, so we could manage that process and allow Anton Cookie and his team to focus on homelessness and supportive services. Which leads us to ELA. We'll go to the next slide. There's no clicker right now. So you all know the rail is active. It's a reality. The first leg is open. The second leg it's going to go all the way through the airport to Mill Street Station. Should open by October. The third leg has been bid. The city awarded, hard awarded the contract to in October, and we hope to see trains running through downtown by 2031. So that's pretty exciting. We can go to the next slide. So over the last 10 years, the city has been developing transit-oriented development neighborhood plans that have been vetted by communities and approved by the city council. We had 9 or 10 of those. And so we made a decision that we're going to start activating those plans. One of the areas that we're starting with is around the Cooley Station area in Evil Lake. We go to the next slide. And I think that's got yeah, there you go. So this is the Cooley Station area. It's kind of broadly defined as Dillingham Road, South King, Lily House Street, and Cooley Street. That's the Evil Lake Center in the background. And this is state land in the foreground. That's South King Street, Dillingham Boulevard over around the back of that. It's a little choppy. Next slide. So in December, right at the end of December, I think it was December 23rd or 4th, in fact, right before Christmas, we closed on 3/4 of an acre, the former First Hawaiian Bank branch building right on South King. And you go to the next slide. And then about a week later, I think the 3rd or 4th of January, we closed on a 4-acre parcel, the Evil Lake Center. This is an important parcel because the train station this is the guide rail for the train. So it's literally approximately 60 feet from the building. So we can go to the next slide.
Where's the financing from for those acquisitions?
CIP money, Affordable Housing Fund, combination of the two. I think we used a little bit of, because it's a mixed use development, we also use taxable bonds. So we go with taxable bonds. So when we looked at the First Hawaiian Bank branch and we looked at the Evil Lake Center and other properties that we owned in the area, all of the stuff in yellow, this total area, this outline is approximately 17 acres. The state owns 6. This bit down here, this is where the former ORNL Railroad station is, and this is senior housing and a parking garage down here. And city owns 7. So 67, 13 out of the 17, approximately the state city nexus is approximately 75% of the land mass. So we said to the mayor, you know what we ought to really do, because this area has been largely defined as industrial over the last 100 years or so. We've got known pockets of contamination. FEMA just came out with a new flood map that shows this entire area inundated and storm surge. And we've got sea level rise issues to deal with. In fact, we're working with the Army Corps of Engineers about a couple of seawall and gates next week that affects all of this area. If this area gets inundated, all of that contaminated stuff in the soil just percolates up and goes everywhere. So we want to kind of prevent that. So when we looked at this, and we looked at the landmass that we own, we went to the mayor and we said, you know, why don't we buy the balance of it? Let's just buy the balance of it. Make it a urban development district. And he greenlighted that last March. You go to the next slide. That's the state area. It's approximately 6 acres. Next slide. So after the mayor greenlighted this in March, we were introduced to a group called the Center for Korean Land Recycling. We took a phone call with them because they primarily focus on working with communities across the mainland to help them redevelop brownfields. And it was kind of premature for a brownfields call, but I said, well, with that, we'll let's just meet them and understand what they do. You go to the next slide. As a result of that conversation, we learned that they have a consultant on their staff who does model work. So we could try to get a quick sense for what was possible on the site. So we asked them to do 3 things first. We asked them to look at the existing FAR that was available under existing zoning. That's kind of, you know, a model of the density, the typical density that you get. We go to the next slide. And we asked them to look at, well, what if we modeled this area for TOD zone? You get a lot of these stick-figure buildings because you get a lot of tiny land sites. I call those that's the Blade Runner model. But what if we took that density that you can achieve with TOD zoning and made it a little bit more of an elegant master plan? And you go to the next slide. What would that look like? And that's kind of what we came up with. So if you go to the next slide, so we took that basic
These
model
models that we're going to show, we've got 2.
and we modeled that. And if you can turn that up,
Urban or ArcGIS.
this is Norman Wright, who actually did the modeling for us. He's gonna walk you through some.
Projected impacts and features
I'm
of
gonna go
the massive development. We're going to be showing. You, the number of units that we expect in the community station area, the electrical demands, the expected daily trips, all kinds of fun stuff there that you can look at more closely afterward. But it gives you a good sense of things. It shows you the development potential for the area, and it shows you the development demands on the infrastructure. After the ArcGIS urban model, we'll then switch to another model in SketchUp, where you'll see all of this with a little more color, a little more detail, as you start looking at how that area can become more livable. And so we'll show some key ideas that have come through all the collaboration so far on how to make this station area a really fantastic transit-oriented community for all the people that will be living there. So I'm going to now switch my screen. Everything should stay right as it is for you so that you can see what's going on. And right now what you're looking at is the ARC urban model. I'm going to tilt that model. It's a 3-dimensional model and give you a sense of orientation here. So from our project area that we've been showing the aerial photos for, we've got a few things to share. First, way over here in the distance is the international airport. That's a very important thing because its flight paths from right there to the direct west of Iwalei, those flight paths affect the maximum height allowed for the towers that are projected to be built here in Iwalei itself. I'm going to also spin around to the east, and we're going to look down towards Waikiki and towards the financial district. And I want to show you a couple of things here just to get our orientation. As it stands right now, we've got quite a bit of tower development all along the South Shore
And you can see Diamond Head way off in the distance there. And that tower development actually ends really right here at Eagle. And so Eagle becomes really an extension of the patterns that have already been present for decades now across that South Shore area. And so here we have Ala Park directly to the south. We have Dillingham to the north. We have King Street to the east. And I'm going to start showing you a few different scenarios that we've worked for or worked through when figuring out development potential. First, I want to show you the existing zoning build out. And there's two things to pay attention to with this particular model. This model suggests that this is what development would generate if every parcel was built to the maximum of what is currently allowed by the site's assemblage of properties and by the zoning. So you have multiple types of zoning here. You have some industrial zoning, of course, you have some residential, you have some mixed use. And what you're really seeing here, again, this doesn't depict real life, but what it shows you is that the city's current policies allow for some fairly vertical development in this area. And that development with this type of use mix generates about 1,700 people who could live in this area and call it homes. That 1,700 people would comprise almost 600 households. That would include 1,200 jobs. You would have a parking capacity of 1,000 spaces and a parking demand of nearly 2,300 spaces. So double of what the capacity is for parking, because this is a very auto-oriented area. And as we know, there's never enough free parking. And so CO2 emissions, that's another notable thing. CO2 emissions under this model generate about 120,000 pounds of greenhouse gases per day. That's quite a bit. I won't get into the nuances there, but daily trips are also sizable for an area this size, 32,000 trips per day in this area, straining the infrastructure, the street network that serves it. So this is the current path, the status quo, if this area was built out today with current zoning, with current properties as they are currently assembled. Now let's take a look at how things are going to be with the new zoning. So there's a new TOD zone that's making a lot of this vertical development possible. You see right away in this model, it's a bit academic, of course, and I'm going to highlight a few things that show that clearly, but you see more verticality now. You also see a lot more residential and commercial. You don't really see any industrial here anymore. We've got green spaces that we're going to talk about shortly when we look at the livability features in the SketchUp model. And then we have the historic properties that are a very important part of this. The historic properties are highlighted in purple, and we'll come back to that again with more detail later. But I want you to take note of something that is really kind of funny. The size of our parcels here are quite small. You know, this is a few acres, 13, 14 acres. And so these parcels, being as small as they are, means that you get these sort of matchstick scenario build outs where, again, this is academic really, but what you're seeing is these tiny little towers like you would see in Blade Runner or something like that. And these tiny little towers are, trying to reach as high as they can to bring as many households and development to the area. But this is not workable. Yes, we get about 4,500 people living in this area, this station area. We get 1,500 jobs, but I mean 1,500 households, and we get much less CO2 and much less daily trips. But the key here is that while the zoning is great now for providing for the vision from the 2020 plan, we still got to think about property assemblage, and this is where our final scenario comes into play. In our final scenario here, you can see that we have our historic buildings preserved. That includes the Human Services building on the corner of of King and Eagle Lay Road, the Tom Fat building over here right along King Street as well. And then if you notice, these towers now are bigger. They're a more appropriate footprint, and they're on several larger, fewer parcels. And it creates a distribution of all of this great density that provides, space for all kinds of livability features that we'll show in a second. And of course, great service and great connection to the new park station that's coming. And so this as a concept demonstrates that the TOD zone can be very effective for providing the type of urbanization that the 2020 TOD plan calls for. And with the right property assemblage, which is something that the city and county has been working on diligently, you can create this great cluster, useful cluster, livable cluster of vertical development that can really serve this area well and be a model for other TODs in the future. In this model, you can see we have about 4,800 people who could call this area home by the new capacity, and that's 1,700 households. Those households assume a basic square footage for a living or a dwelling unit of 1,000 feet. So we're being very generous here in our assumptions. Not all dwelling units would be 1,000 square feet. Some might be more, some might be less. But the challenge was, could we fit somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 dwelling units in this station area? And the answer is yes, we can definitely do that with the assumption of 1,000 square feet per dwelling unit. We get right at 1,700, and there could be more, because one other thing I want to note is that there's quite a bit of parking actually in this final scenario. Every little layer of a building that you see that's in gray, that is dedicated parking, structured parking, podium parking for the vertical development. And so we have a parking capacity that basically meets the demand. We've got 1,420 parking spaces, and the parking demand is estimated with this household and with this type of ownership rate for automobiles to be about 1,500 parking spaces. So we're really close as one gets in an urban environment like this typically. So this gives you a sense of that development potential again. It should show you a little bit about how the TOD zone can be very effective to help cultivating this type of growth. And it should also show hopefully how land assembly and master plan is going to be essential to making sure that the placement of these and the footprint of these buildings is really done well and thoughtful while respecting the historic properties that surround it that are very sensitive, as well as key areas like the ECO substation here in yellow that is just to the north of the expected park station. But to really look at that ECO substation, look more at the heart station itself, the Kawili station area as a whole, I'm now going to switch to the next model, the SketchUp model. As I do that, I want you to keep in mind, if you can, just this basic imprint of these towers in this general assembly and how that starts to play out when we look at it with more detail in a SketchUp model. So I'm going to switch to that now. Okay, so here is a broader look at the overall area. We got an aerial photograph here of the general vicinity. We got our streets and our center lines. And this, of course, is our study area within the greater Evil A area. And I want to bring attention to a couple of things. First, infrastructure. So again, if you recall, we got this nexus here of all this trunk infrastructure that's going to be planned and developed in this area over time, all serving the Kawili Station area and that broader Evil A area. Well, when we think about that, I'm going to superimpose the current parcels for the station area now, and I'm going to put the aerials back on too. This is our station area. These are the parcels. This is the aerial, of course, that surrounds it. And if you notice, here on these parcels, I've got everything color coded. This is a very important thing. Remember, CClear, we work with the EPA, and we work to help brownfield communities address the reuse needs of reusing brownfields for something productive. These sites here in Evil A, the future Kawili Station area, these are all brownfields. They have some form of contamination, sometimes severe and well known, other times unknown, and the severity isn't very clear, but there is some suspected or known amount of contamination on these sites from the legacy of uses, industrial use in particular, over time. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit here and show, like, for example, where we see a parcel that's in red. Those parcels, we don't quite know really very much about what is there, but we highly suspect brownfield contamination. Other parcels that are highlighted in purple, yellow, these have contamination of a certain level too. The only site that doesn't have any contamination, that has been given a clean bill, so to speak, is where the senior living tower is today. So let me put on the original buildings here. So these are the footprints of the original buildings for the area. And when we look at this right now, you can see where the senior living tower is. And then you can see the green underneath it. That's the property that doesn't have a brownfield. Every other property, though, has some component, again, of brownfields. And that's where, again, we come in to be able to provide this type of service. So we've got the regional infrastructure coursing through this area, right? We've also got the brownfields to have to contend with. And then along with that, we've got projected, let me turn off these parcels real quick. We've got projected sewer surcharges over time as the area starts to build out and more impervious surface and more flooding. You can see inflow and infiltration, I continuing to tax the sewer lines here. And then we also have sea level rise. Sea level rise where you see perhaps inundation of pockets of water whenever there's just, I don't know, 2 or 3 feet of sea level rise, which is already projected to occur in the next 20 years. So you have these infrastructure needs, you have contamination in the area, you have all this infrastructure possibilities. And so there's a lot here to think about. And in this type of model, we just start to look at this stuff a little more tactically, I guess. By the way, over here is our eco substation, by the way. And so we do it all while thinking about what can happen as the rail line comes in. So there's our rail line. Let me zoom back in. Our rail line is right here. And you can see that already the hard substation, or the station here, it already cuts into some of these existing buildings. We'll deal with that in a second. But I'm going to add on the additional buildings from the surrounding area. And now I'm going to add on that vision from 2020 neighborhood TOD plan to show, again, what the kind of development is expected to be here. So every building that you see in red or orange, these are the buildings that represent that development potential, the anticipated density as this incredible rail line courses through the heart of Eagle Eye. So as this comes and as development potential improves and as those infrastructure elements are put into place, you start to see where, yeah, what's currently in Eagle Eye, particularly in the Kauai Station area, is a little out of place. So in the ArcGIS urban model, I had shown how we really needed to think about property assemblage. And so I'm going to show you that same city block that we have in mind for this area, where all of those properties get assembled into larger parcels to support larger consolidated building footprints for vertical development. So this is where we can see a couple of important civic improvements start to emerge. We get larger parcels. Again, let me turn back on our original parcels. You can see that the original parcels here, it's kind of a choppy mess, right? You see this with all kinds of old development infill. You know, you get little landlocked pieces like right here, and you get, some disconnected alleyways. Well, okay, we're gonna imagine that we've done what we were planning and showing in that ArcGIS urban model. We've consolidated these things. We've created new through streets. We've also created a new bikeway and pedestrian pathway that comes right through from King Street to the Hart Station. That's a great thing. And we got a little civic center here too, to go adjacent to and serve all the development that we're thinking about. So let's talk about that.
And that.
Again, the buildings that you see in red, those vertical development pieces, that's all the future of what's expected here. And so to stay true to that, to continue to expand that vision, here in the Kauai Station area, We're going to add our historic buildings, which are going to be our preserved areas, like the Tom Fat building along King Street. And then we're going to add all of our TOD development. And
So
that
why don't we go to- why don't we
includes
go to the next slide?
consideration for preserve.
It's only a half hour? No. It's okay. All right, so anyway,
We have
so
Dan- yeah, 'cause we
at
have
the end of the
Dan.
day, we have an opportunity to build a world-class development right in Eagle Lake, right on a rail station. Go to the next slide. There are two examples of that. One was Shiodome Station in Tokyo, and the other was Brentwood Town Center in Vancouver. Go to the next slide. So with this information, we put together a workshop at the end of August last year, and we brought together all the major state partners and all the major city departments to take a look at over the course of 2 days, how could we attack this? I've never seen in the 20 years that I've been doing this, this many departments come together this early in a project. So it was really helpful to us. You can go to the next slide. And then as a result of that, we printed a situation report that took all of the input that we got from all of these partners. Go to the next slide. And then as a result of that, we were able to take that information, we applied for a Federal Transportation Administration grant, a 2024 pilot program. They had $10 million available. There were 30 applicants. The city won the highest award of $2 million across all those 30 applicants. They also won a state TOD grant for $700,000. So now we have $2.7 million. We can actually do real master planning. This was just etch a sketch stuff for the most part to understand what the potential was. Go to the next slide. And then most recently, we just issued a request for qualification, seeking a development partner for this. The request, the proposals have come back, and we're actually scoring them today this afternoon at 3 o'clock. So we'll be selecting a development partner before the end of the month and moving forward. Sorry, no one was so long. Okay. Anything else? Any questions?
It's 2031.
So my effort is to break ground on development for the Eagle Lake Center property. That's the 4 acres that we acquired before the end of the administration in 2028. And assuming a 2-3 year development timeline, that would be simultaneously with the operation of the rail. This is exciting. And then over the next year or so, we have an RFP that's going to be going out this month to master planner to plan the balance of the area. So we'll be pursuing both in sort of parallel efforts. But it's an economically underserved community. It's got environmental contamination. It's also got sea level rise and flood impact. So it's a place where government needs to intervene. And that the state and city nexus really gives us an opportunity to do that. And we deliver close to 2,000 units of housing, which is walkable to Chinatown and within walking distance of downtown job center. Sorry, I thought I had a half hour.
No, you were right, and
Yeah.
we need to move over to the next thing in about 20 minutes. So we could even have like 5 or 10 more
You
minutes
guys
for
have questions?
questions, discussion.
Want to
if you
make sure we
could.
give break time too, though.
Yeah.
Just one.
Yeah, sure.
I think this relates to this kind of conversation. Industrial space obviously is being squeezed in a lot of areas
Yeah.
for redevelopment. How are you guys thinking about that?
So we could we'll have to move some folks out. Some folks in that area, I'll be meeting with all of this way, making general information notices that went out. It's required as a part of uniform relocation whenever government buys stuff. And would have the potential of revoking eminent domain. We have to go through this process, Uniform Relocation Act process. I'll be meeting with all 18 landowners out there, understand what their needs are, where they can go. Some of them might be able to bring back. So once we start, the interesting thing about the redevelopment of Eagle Lake Center is we anticipate it's going to get raised up about 5 feet, and it'll have some retail community space on the bottom. We're looking at co-locating government services on, say, a second floor. We worked with Hart to completely reorient the rail station there and cooling station so that we would face towards that town center area that Norman talked to. We're working with the Ottawa Metropolitan Planning Organization to co-locate a multimodal hub right at that spot, something that we can use for like farmers markets on the weekends. And, this is where people can pick up bikes and that kind of thing to get to the next leg. But the really cool thing is that at the station guide rail level, we have a stub outs on either side of the station. So, because the building is only 60 feet away, we have elevated pedestrian walkways right into the building. So you get on a train and elevate, come into town, do your business, get back on the train, you never have to touch the pavement for the most part. The other stub out on the other side of the street is really important. It's 10, 15 years down the road, they're right across Dillingham and South King is going to get developed. There'll be 2,500 units there. We want to be able to facilitate getting folks in and out of the station conveniently and safely. That's a nasty intersection.
And are you guys, is it willing sellers mainly, or is it?
For the most part, you know, what's interesting, there's an article in the paper just a couple of weeks ago when we went out with the offers, and most recognized that this would be coming. Yeah, there's no question about it.
Do you guys have a vision, like someplace like, that you're envisioning what it's gonna look like, looking at like, just what is the urban landscape?
That's next.
Oh,
So this was just, the etch a sketch. Norman stole my phrase, Blade Runner Towers, by the way. This was just what's possible. What would the densities look like? How would we balance the parking and all of the things like, do we want just a regional parking area and no parking in the buildings? And also, what are the requirements of utility? What is the capacity for potable water, for drainage, for sewer and gray water? So we can put a regional gray water collection plant on the site because we control. And then electricity plants, et cetera. So all of that is really exciting. What's that?
Is that capacity there existing?
Yeah, so we have, well, no, there's enough for the Eagle Center itself, but we'll have to bring more to the balance of the area. But to answer your question specifically, once we get the master planner on board, then we'll start the community engagement process, and it'll be the community's vision where they want to see it. We're not going to dictate that. We just want to know what the potential is. So it's exciting.
For an economic development, is it primarily going to be?
Little of everything, yeah, so, we're looking at, so most of affordable housing is developed using low income housing tax credits. That's a really limited resource, very finite. Across the state, we can develop approximately 1,000 units or less a year. I think for the last 5 years, it's been about 950. So we're trying to find alternative ways to finance property and affordable housing development that doesn't depend on high tech. And that will require mixing some, market rate stuff with some lower AMI level product. And try to find that right balance. We're looking at a model that was developed by Montgomery County, Maryland County Council, and they go up to about 140 AMI, and they do about 30% affordable, which is basically 80 AMI. So we might look at some models like that. Might look at some homeownership models as well.
So it makes simple and rental.
Yeah.
So the city could do it to own the ground.
Along the ground. Yeah. And we'll partner with, we're not going to develop it. We're not going to develop it, build it. Because that didn't work out the first time. That's how we got where we are today. We'll partner with developers, but in order to do that, we've got to figure out what the right subdivision looks like, what the right parcel sizes look like. How do you create the connectivity? I don't know if you've ever gone over there, but you can't get from South King over to Costco. You go all the way through the woods. It's nuts.
How are they gonna manage the brownfield situation?
Carefully.
Yeah.
You can encapsulate, right? You just lay over on the top of it, or you can scoop it up, take it away. We'll probably be looking at the latter just because the water table is so high. And it's a culturally sensitive area too. It used to be a fish pond. There's a lot of eating potentially. So a lot of stuff.
Thank you, Karen.
My pleasure. Appreciate it. Sorry, it was still a little bit long.
No, just right.
All right. It's good to see you all. Thanks very much.
We have to go back to break. We're going
Goes down. I guess my question with this is, what is our role in this? Like, we sit here sometimes and listen to presentations and nothing happens really. So I don't know if there's a plan for that, but we're just our edification. Maybe there's a role for us, our expertise. Anyway, you don't have to answer that.
That's a loaded.
I see it.
I think it's a good question.
No, I mean, the thing is, maybe they should consult us early, and get ideas and brainstorm, because with my report on the pig, what I'm realizing is that governmental agencies like this, and we're not good at doing real work, like heavy lifting work. We're good at idea generation and guidance. So I think that that's what we should do.
The master planning process is probably an ideal time for that, because, you know, a lot of times when you go through master planning for a large development, you're looking at things like tenant makeup and market demand and, you know, and sizing spaces appropriately for those kinds of things. And so that would be a good time for us to give input on what types of businesses might be appropriate for that area and for them to be able to good space.
And we're a good sounding board because there's a lot of different kinds of people in this group. So it's a good feedback for them, I would think. We'll talk to our friends.
But I think that's very much the intent of this and bringing Kevin today.
Okay.
Is it's very early and
Sure. Good to give it some context though in the future when we bring someone in and they go, like, I can think of people that have come and gone and we've done nothing about it really, but it just, this is information only, there's nothing for us to do about it. Then I wonder why are we doing it? So I like to be intentional, you know. But as far as the pig, you know, I was thinking about it, you know, our next task was to gather information from the procurement, but we haven't managed to have a meeting. And so I think we have probably busy people on these committees. So that's, it is what it is, but it made me realize that, you know, like I tend to take on work, you know, that's just my nature. So if I see something, I tend to do it, you know, and like the last time I did all this legal research because I was just curious, and probably that's not what agencies usually do, you know, commissions and things like that. Like police commission, do they do like legal research and do memos? Probably not. So, so that's kind of my nature, but then that's not necessarily everyone's nature. So I think that I'm shifting a bit because how we were proceeding with this is we were going to do the research, come up with the law change, because I mean, I could do a lot of that myself, but you know, I'm like, do I really want to do it? And that's not necessarily appropriate. And so maybe the appropriate thing would be to be more of a, provide more of a recommendation to the city, say, you should do this. Just drop it on the desk. You should work with the procurement office and figure this out, but it needs to get done. Because I don't know the ins and outs of how to do it. They do, right? That's kind of their work. So I guess what does that make? Would that make any sense? Like I don't, like I'm like you, I don't really know government, but rather than telling them, well, here's a law change, can you adopt this? Maybe we should let them do the work, and we should just recommend that they do the work.
That was the intent, was that we would make a recommendation to them, and but I think we lost a little bit of traction with the transition, the staff transition, because Kim was kind of leading the thing.
She was good at getting us.
Yeah, and so I think that's partly a little bit of the issue, but I think that was the game plan, was that we were going to, the PIG would make a recommendation to the commission, and we would agree that, you know, hey, we'd like the council to consider this and push it, but we weren't getting any traction with the procurement office as well, is my understanding, that they were not.
Well, that's why we're gonna send them questions.
Yeah.
So we can still do that, but my context would be more that we would use the data to then, you know, to support our recommendation. Because I'm pretty sure it's gonna show that we could do better with local contracting. So let's assume that's the case. Then that could be data to provide with memo, or I don't know what form it would take to give it to the council. Let's say we recommend you look at this, and then let them do the heavy lifting, because that's really their expertise and their attorneys and their departments. But if they tell the procurement to do something, there's a better chance it'll happen than if we say whatever we say.
It's sort of relate to what Kevin mentioned. I think right before you walked in, he mentioned about like he mentioned that the procurement is just an issue and it would take years. And then what did he call it?
It is, it's a little bit different, but yes, it's a little nuanced, but yes. So he's talking about leasing land, city land specifically.
I think the process of pushing it through, what did he call RFQ? But he had, I mean, I don't know, can you model, like, what is that nuance? I mean, it's just pretty much getting it done quicker. Couldn't it be applied in a lot of different arenas versus just in his situation?
A couple of thoughts. First, an apology. I am totally responsible for dropping the ball from where Kim left it and not like making sure that.
I think we all got busy, and I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure you had.
Yeah, we're
your
busy.
schedule. Yeah, so, but it made me realize something. It's
It is
actually not a
hard,
bad thing.
like there's a capacity issue
Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure, to be able to move stuff like this forward. My experience with government generally, like other than being on the outside saying, here are good ideas that you should do. My experience on the inside for the last few months has been procurement is a massive, massive issue. And this is a great idea. And beyond that, there's so many things that need to be changed.
But maybe you can walk before you run.
Yeah.
You know, maybe if we hit them with this, it'll help.
My sense is, what's a light lift way that we can keep the ball rolling?
Yeah.
To try and make some incremental progress on this. What I think needs to happen is there needs to be enough, and it's not just gonna be OER, it's not just gonna be the commission. There needs to be enough people saying that we gotta make improvements. Here are all the areas where there's potential, that it actually translates into massive reform. Because the current process, like I've worked with Denise and other folks here a lot on just to buy like software to do our work every day is a massive undertaking. And coming from an environment where the procurement process was, we need this, and I think we have the budget for it. Click, and that's it. Versus like you need 2 dedicated staff members to buy the things that you need. That needs to
Yeah, I think we need
changes.
to revisit when Amy's here too, because we were kind of talking a lot about this, and I think one of the suggestions was, and we kind of didn't meet, but I think one of the suggestions was, how do we get a response from procurement as a city to answer a lot of the questions that we have, because we don't know what we don't know, right? And so we were trying to kind of get that, figure out how to force them really to respond. And so there was a suggestion of doing, like, having the council do an info briefing and the Councilman Wire doing an info briefing as a committee, and having the procurement office come talk about how they do things and how they work with small businesses and things like that. But, I think we just need to get that back on track. Decide if that's
Yeah, I think Kim said that they wanted specific questions was the next kind of thing. So they may not respond to our questions, is what you're saying, but then we go to the next level, right? You have to kind of sequence it so that they don't feel we're being unfair to them or so.
Is it nuance on timing? Like, couldn't you just like shorten the time frames? Like in like with technology, with everything else, isn't that the idea that we should be able to do things faster? So couldn't you just move the needle a little, like change the timing of everything to speed it along just in that way? I mean, it seems very simple, and that would be private sector. They're like, oh, we just do it, kind of a thing. But I don't know. Is that something that we can,
Given our time constraints, because we do have to leave in about 5 minutes. Greg, maybe I can just follow up with you after.
Sure.
So we can, I'll talk with you and you can give.
Because I'd like to close the pig out, number
Yeah.
one, I mean, it's for nothing, but also, the idea would be to draft a possible document that we would share with the city council, present that to the commission as our work product, and then Chris can do what it wants, but the idea, I mean, to me, it's non-controversial to say there should be some kind of local reference. And here's what we learned about it, and here's the data from procurement that says, we're not really doing as much as we could. At least motivate them to do something. Yeah.
We got support from Blue Pole, right, Kevin, for some of the work that I saw their name. One thing on your update.
something like that?
Yeah, I know. Alex had something.
Yeah, they're funding, well, they have it in their budget to fund a position, like a systems coordinator, so like my position, but underneath me, and or an internship or partnership, and then they funded me to do grant writer training.
So could we ask if they could fund something to add some like body or a person or some expertise, if this is something that's aligned with their mission too? I'm happy to make the ask myself.
Is that for procurement as a whole or the local preference?
Like just to do what you're doing, but just to have someone that's taking it and we're dogging it for us.
I mean, like a Kim that has time.
It's resources there.
I'm not sure.
And do some research, maybe call in.
Yeah, sure.
follow
I mean,
groups and
We had that one guy, right? We had that one guy that was here. He's gone, right?
Hello.
Yeah. But I'll talk to Gavin afterwards, and I think I can put something together, run it past the committee, and we can share questions and then see if we can get a response. Because they asked for the questions.
What's the normal percentage of local?
I don't really know. There's also a question of how are they going to define local?
And that's the problem, is that we don't have that information, so we don't even know
What do
do
we-
we quantify, right? So,
Yeah.
Yeah, we know it's an issue, but we don't know how big of an issue, right? So,
When you ask them for that data, they're gonna say, how do you define local? So anyway, but whatever, we'll just get what we can. Right? We can make some extrapolations from that.
we need to do the voting on the.
I don't think there needs to be a vote. Alex, you have just a
For
couple
the,
things for the upcoming meeting.
so just an update for July, we're gonna keep focusing on agriculture, but with the land use lens, so someone from DPP is gonna come chat with us about the land use ordinance update that got passed at the end of last year. And then someone from the Clean Water Natural Lands Fund at Department of Land Management and Housing, is that their new title? Is gonna come talk to us about the Clean Water Natural Lands Fund, which can purchase conservation or agricultural easements.
I would volunteer to help with that in some fashion, so you just let me know what you need.
We'll probably have Kale, it's gonna be Kale and we talk, so we can figure out something. And then in September, we're gonna keep it on the innovative field trip train and thank you folks to a community meeting to meet with some of the organizations doing this kind of work. So there's two options basically. We can either go to Humboldt Farms in Waianae or go Weeby, which is in Haia on the Woodford side. I don't know if we need to vote on that now or if that's a conversation that you can have then.
I would suggest couple for the group, because I think a lot of folks have been to Wahoo, and that's where there's lots of land.
Yeah,
We keep talking about putting people into farms and.
Olden also needs help in his employees, so.
Yeah, so get redressed.
I was gonna suggest to, yeah.
That'll work there too.
Cut insurance.
Okay.
To vote on that, or can we just say that we want to go to?
And it's closer to.
Okay, I moved.
And it's stunningly beautiful.
To go to Olden.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion to go to.
So I'll set that up. I'll set that up.
Okay, perfect, yeah.
If you're gonna do a motion, then you should have the actual vote on the favor.
Okay, so we did the motion, okay, so there's a motion. And then,
Another second.
yeah, and then, we're good?
Any
On favor.
discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I also recommend Honolulu Valley. Because I'm a school bus driver now, part-time, for the winter side. So I drove him up to the valley and Mark, that's last name. He's an iconic figure.
It's
Just
awesome.
off the land. You know him?
No, I do know the area. but not the-
Oh, yeah. He
But I
blocked
love your bus driving stories. so like,
He blocked H3, he blocked H3, so then they gave him that land there. So he's
Okay, we're
very,
about to
very
do something
active.
monumental.
Yes.
The first field trip,
Field trip.
live stream.
Live
for-
stream.
I'll be back with my school bus, you can go there. But he would blow your mind.
Actually, I did visit his site, yeah, Derek, I heard Derek was just.
Quick question, are you gonna come back here to get parking?
Well, I think they got the.
They got the
Okay.
validation.
You're welcome to leave your stuff if you need to, or take it with you and just leave it there. Walking
Yeah,
about, walk.
Okay. Alex, our influencer is gonna leave the way.
I kind of forgot
There's a
my,
couple there.
which one is A?
Just made this morning.
So
So
if
grown
you
by
cross,
children,
um,
this is in the Hawaii way too, so Stone Age.
going that way, you walk after White House, you walk like
Wonderful.
two lots.
And no
It's an inner
chemicals.
garage. It's one of our- but it's like
On the
a-
right
uh,
side.
On the right side, the left side, left side. It's in like a-
Amber,
Yes.
I'm Greg,
Yeah.
just wanna say hi, yeah, are you
Yeah.
pretty new to
But I
it?
think if you.
Yeah, I started like as a board.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
Thanks.
Alex, do you want me to take us through
Herding the
that?
cats.
Sure.
How are you doing? How's the work going?
So give the host. And then are you going to monitor the Zoom?
We're gonna take
Go to-
this.
Can you do it from your desk and then can you just in?
Actually, could you in her?
Amy's at graduation, right? Or something. That's awesome.
I just left click on me on
Gonna
this.
come home or, you know, find something out there.
Oh.
Do I just like make you?
Or go to can you go to participants and then?
Who are you? You're
I
this
think
one.
I'm that one, yeah. And then, yeah, pin. Okay, that should be good.
Is that good?
I think so.
Ready?
Yes. I got to turn the audio on though, right?
Alex, is yours too?
Yeah.
And this?
Yeah, sorry. Okay, oh my God. Melissa, don't leave me.
Couple years in there.
Oh, sure.
You guys do use content first.
No, we have to stay live streaming.
Yes, for sunshine.
Are there people actually on it?
I don't think so.
You might lose it right now.
Just in the elevator. We tested this. We did the whole walk a couple days ago. Yeah, we'll lose it in the elevator, but it should come back.
So when you lose it in that elevator, don't say anything.
Yeah, don't say anything crazy.
It's only 9 almost.
Giant.
Got a while to go.
Yeah.
It goes fast though. Then you get roped into driving. Oh, no need to rope me. When there was a bus shortage, where I told my wife, I wish I could go drive a bus because it sounds like a great thing to do. Then, I was Scott Paul, who was Dustin's partner. And, people who. I'm surprised we don't have more sessions. Oh, yeah.
I know, this is so fun. We're missing out on it. Are we still looking good, Amber?
Looks good.
Okay, thank you.
It's actually really cool.
I told them when we did the, oh shit.
Have you been to Metro before? It's really small, so actually it's maybe okay that we're not all here.
Yeah, check it out over here.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. Perfect.
Yep.
Yeah. I didn't get time to share my slides, but we're working on a project in conjunction with the TOD project that Kevin talked about to incorporate, they're gonna do vertical recreation in the buildings, like move the basketball and pickleball courts inside rather than take up green space. So we have a proposal with Bloomberg and with Hirono's office to incorporate technologies like we're gonna see at Metro Grow, like aquaponics and hydroponics for community gardening.
What if you're successful and they say, I'd like to do it? So, like, our young son is now interested in aerospace. Yeah, because he just started seeing stuff. It's a city property.
No, I don't think so.
So there's food growing in this.
Hello.
Yeah.
I think I need to stay by you so we can hear you.
Well.
This is it, okay, and you're live to the world.
Yeah,
Right.
and everyone on the Zoom, but there's like 4 people, I think.
You turn off your mic. I was
Yes.
watching so I could keep track of what you guys
Oh,
were.
perfect.
Was working.
Yeah.
That's not what I pictured.
Welcome, this is Metro Hawaii, we're the first indoor
okay.
vertical farm in the state. It's the first legal one. Other kinds of operations. But yeah, we're the first, probably the largest. I think so far we're still the only one. So we grow vertically, which means we grow in racks. And obviously indoors, it's just the kind of controlled environment agriculture, which is a pretty popular thing now on the mainland across the globe. So we wanted to, first one in Hawaii, hopefully propose it as a sort of something, alternative form of agriculture for our state. And so hopefully at the end, we'll show you a little bit about where we think we want to take this next. Take a look at the current operation. So this right now is kind of an office. What's going to be a store, but we moved it right at the side of the pandemic. So it never became a store, at least a few fledged. But we do take online orders, and so on Thursday afternoons we come by to pick up the online stuff. And we're at the Blaisdell Farmers Market, Kakako Farmers Market also. So we are a food safety GAP, harmonized GAP certified farm. So actually, I'll probably just get names from Alex later, which you're not allowed to. But you gotta go over the rules about, you know, if you're sick or not feeling well, you should probably stay out of the grow areas. No children under 12, no glass in the grow rooms. The restrooms are right down the hall to go to the restroom. So all the growing operation is in here. So we'll take a look at, take a quick look at it between here.
Glasses and glasses too?
Well, I mean glass containers, sorry.
What was this building before?
This used to be a print shop. So it was good for us because they had a lot of electrical infrastructure already.
Someone said farming is like printing money, right?
Yeah,
There you
I
go.
wish. So don't mind the rest. So we have 4 individual grow rooms, and as we just mentioned, this used to be a print shop. So it was kind of this hallway, that office, and this section. So about half of it right now is for growing. The first room there is where we have one of our kind of signature crops, ice plant, or we call it glacier greens. And we have some more growing here, so we'll see this one. We're still trying to get that one sort of up and running fully. But it's producing pretty well right now.
Why is it called glacier?
Glacier greens is a kind of ice plant. You may have, if you golf, you've probably seen this as a ground cover, kind of a succulent, low-lying, has usually red or white flowers. But this is an edible version. So it comes from South Africa, but it's popular in Japan and France for culinary uses. And so we're the only ones that we know that are doing it commercially. You get to taste and have some samples. So we do that. That's kind of our specialty item. We also do a lot of microgreens and lettuces and other leafy greens. So this first room here is the microgreen room. You're welcome to come inside. It's a little tight, so. Right.
Sorry. Maybe I'll come right here. Yeah.
So all these are
microgreens are, as you can see, sort of small, sort of between the stage of, sprout and going to a full-fledged, green. So usually the defining thing that, microgreen for us is when you see the first sort of coming out of the plant, that's. Restaurants that are kind of South Carolina. No, actually, I don't know a lot of restaurants. The bigger ones usually want such large amounts that, we have a hard time meeting some of those. Really cool. But we got some pretty decent size. FET is a great customer for us. The Prince Hotel takes stuff from us. The Hyatt, Kahala, Wasabi Bistro, MW. So we have a pretty good collection of restaurants. But yeah, you're right. The culinary people usually want this kind of crop. So what you see here on this side without the lights is the germination stage. So for the first 7 days, you just hang out in these little trays, and some of them are covered. So until they germinate, we leave the covers on. Then we remove the covers, let them go for the full week, and then we transfer them into the lighted trays where water circulates with fertilizer. And they'll go for another 12 to 14 days. So this is the nice thing about this, and why I think everybody's trying to get into it, is the turnaround so fast. It's like 20 days, seed to harvest. And then because they're tiny little microgreens for restaurants, you can charge way more.
And then for the seeds, are you guys recapturing seeds?
No, so that's one thing that makes it a little more expensive to produce is it's new seeds every time.
It's all imported from the continent?
Yeah, so there's not a really seed production farms here for this kind of seed. So most of it comes from Johnny Seeds and True Leaf, some pretty big commercial seed providers on the continent. And in fact, I think almost even our competitors, everybody probably buys some seeds from Johnny's.
If you were to run this in like San Diego versus Honolulu, would our cost triple, double?
So shipping, because they're so light and small, shipping is okay for the seeds, but the other material, like we grow these on the mats, take a look at them later. We gotta ship that in. Fertilizers, gotta ship that in. So that's where the expenses go up. And then what I'll talk about later, of course, Hawaii energy. Yeah, that's the killer. Most of the microgreens are a little bit more delicate. So that's why we do the air conditioning. Some of the competitors do it outdoors or at least in the shade tents. So it's doable. But we kind of like the idea that we're going to say, hey, we're growing this in cool conditions that most of them are optimized for. So it's a little bit different product, I think.
Are you recirculating water?
Yeah, so on these black tubs, as you see on the bottom of the racks, so the water, and we put the nutrients in there, fertilizers, and they circulate all the tubing you see. But once an hour, it just kind of flows through and capture it. And we'll change it out for about a week or so as it gets kind of dirty.
Do you like test the tubs for just like what nutrients might be in there?
So yeah, because we keep it like a smaller container and we change it once a week, it's pretty consistent throughout that time. Yeah. I know a lot of farms struggle with that, having to monitor it so constantly, but because we try to keep everything in small batches and have it turn over really quick, we don't have to do continuous test that.
I like the 18-volt pump tech.
Oh yeah. We were struggling with how to water these trays fast, so I found this little battery inverter that could run the little pump and you just spray the water on.
And so what is the mat that it grows on?
It's called BioStraight, right here. So it's just like a film. So I'll open it in there so you can see it. Yeah, I mean, it would be pretty dirty. You'd have to take all the roots out. So we've tried some reusable items. There's people growing silicone mats. So that's nice, except then you gotta sit there and scrub the silicone mat. So this is biodegradable, so we feel okay. But yeah, if you could, find a way to clean the silicone easier, we save a lot of money.
So when you're selling it, you're giving them the full mat?
No, so we cut it. Yeah. We've been thinking about doing trays. It started thinking that that's how the restaurants would want it, but they're so busy and they have such limited space that I don't think it's practical.
You can get more than one crop if you cut it.
You could. Some of the microgreens we do. Most of them are one time. So this room has some more microgreens and some of the more ones that take a little bit longer to grow. And we're so I have actually grown some more, but it needs such. Okay, that one out there. It's like $100 a pound if you still sick. You don't think so? I think in the early days when people didn't really understand the plant nutrition very much, it was such a basic fertilizer recipe that you probably weren't missing. But now people understand it a lot better, so you can provide, I think, almost everything. Only thing that we don't provide are the microbiome, so bacteria, organic. People would say it provides sort of the terroir of the plant world. But we think that a lot of people say, yeah, your stuff is great. So we're pretty confident that we're doing okay.
Are you doing the lights like Alaska days?
So the microgreens, because they just hang through, we got them on 24 hours. Yeah. I think the light cycle thing, plants gotta sleep and all that, mostly comes because if you're doing fruiting plants, they are looking at the light cycle for timing on when to flower and fruit. So that's critical. But because they're doing all vegetative stuff, leafy greens and microgreens, it's probably not as critical. The lettuce, we do a cycle. That's mostly because if you give lettuce too much light, they tend to have what's called tip burn instead of the leaves start burning. So we cut the light down. And then on the other extreme, we have this tent here. Yeah, this is popcorn. Actually. And so the chefs want it yellow. They don't want it green.
Oh, like white asparagus and.
Yeah, so it just looks really unusual kind of color. When Alan Wong was open, this whole tent was going to him.
So it's white corn?
No, just regular yellow corn.
But then they wanted white.
Oh, they want it yellow. So looks like that.
Oh, that's the color.
Yeah, and I don't know if you want to try
Is there a different taste though?
It tastes like really, really sweet popcorn.
So you just eat the
Yeah.
leaf?
When I was in Paris, I was served white asparagus that they
Oh,
said
yeah.
they grow in the cave because they don't want the chlorophyll too.
Right, that's the same thing. Yeah.
This is really good. It is sweet.
So in fact,
Wow, that's
in
crazy.
fact, if I leave this tent open too long, or when I
It's not who hasn't been to Alan Wong's here yet.
then it starts turning green.
Wow.
Yeah. And then, it still tastes okay.
How is that so sweet?
I guess the seeds store a lot of sugars and starches, but it's amazing how sweet. I tried drying it to see if I could use it as a sugar substitute, but it doesn't have much flavor.
Just like popcorn? Like popcorn?
It's popcorn, yeah. I tried growing on the different supermarket, but the viability was terrible. Commercial. But yeah, it's basically a kind of popcorn. Yeah. Yeah, so Alan Wong, like I said, he had that onaga, was one of his signature dishes. So he put that as a garnish on top.
Cool.
So there's still some restaurants and a bunch of it.
So you get to eat free wherever you go, no?
I wish. that was a vision I had in my mind when I started.
So if you don't taste it, just
No, but I do get it though. Fed gives me good service. So said, we've been with Fed since they opened. She's been really supportive.
Well, that's very unusual, the sweetness.
Yeah. It's in fact, a lot of people I think it tastes like artificial sweetening.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. Yes.
This set, we also have this one gets light. This is a pea tendril. So this is we already seen the pea vines So the vine is, they'll jump up and they'll put out a lot of these tendrils, and the chefs like that, it's dramatic on the plate. So
Yeah.
this is a couple of days, this will be ready on Thursday. So they're starting to put out the tendril.
What is this?
Pea tendril.
Oh, wow.
And then we just harvested today and we replanted. These will be pea shoots, which grow faster and taller and don't put out as much of the vine. So you go to Food and Farms, Alamana, they take most of this. So they actually have it on the shelf. So that's one of our supermarket accounts. A lot of fungus gnats, which is a real common indoor plant pest, but they don't really eat the plants. They kind of just eat fungus and algae that's growing. So it's just a nuisance. But my old location, in another part of Kakaako, we got a little bit of aphid infestation. And that was terrible. No, we seem to keep that one out. I don't even know how the aphids got in there. So we're on the second floor of this warehouse. So it's like, where do you guys come from? So it took us about a month or 2 months to get rid of that. And just because our stuff turns over so fast, we could just kind of throw it away and get rid of the infected stuff and break that cycle of reproduction. That's hard, yeah. It's hard, yeah.
Is the Tesla battery or are you have
Yeah.
solar?
So we have solar. The landlord was nice enough to let me put it on his roof
Oh, nice.
after I promised that when we leave, he gets to have it. So I don't know who's getting the better deal there. And then we had the batteries, and we have two, and then we just got another two put in outside so that we could go on to that Pico battery bonus program. So we give back so many hours per night, and then we get a rebate and the discount on the bill.
Nice.
Is this all just HVAC to keep the temperature
Yeah.
right? for
Yeah,
the room?
so yeah, we have HVAC. We did this system that's it's a city multi from Mitsubishi. So you can have one condenser and control each individual handler with different temperatures. So we can do different temperatures in once in each room. And then the other thing is we really want to try and be sustainable since we're spending money on cooling is that we collect all the condensate into that container right there. So all the AC condensate goes in there, goes through a filter designed specifically for AC condensate, and then we can give it back to the plants. So, my story is that when the landlord came in, he didn't want to set up a separate water meter. So we are growing plants. So if you watch it, you let me know. So he hasn't, and he hasn't said that he needed to charge me yet. So I think the bill is low enough that it's fine. So this is the lettuce one, the largest one.
Walked away.
So, yeah. Yeah, the same process. You know, a lot of stuff. Here and birds flying over.
But we were only in here.
Wow. I heard it was a master on it. Now. Yeah. I'm trying to do that as a matter. So here is.
Yeah, we need to fill that up. Right.
So like this system here, we're growing the same aeroponic. So you can see they're nozzles.
Oh, right.
So instead of getting soapy water all the time, it gets sprayed and misted with a nutrient solution. So that way what happens is you get a lot of oxygen availability. So the roots form really nicely. And then the only soil that we really have is in the forest. I see it, the plant the seeds in there, the sprout, grow in there, and we actually send them out. Here's the one that. So our lettuce the last. What is the point? It's made out of coconut husk and there's a little bit of binder. Yeah, I was looking at this one. Which is, okay, that's not dirt. So there's some binder in it. We try to hold together so it doesn't fall apart. Yeah, that's a good thing. It's,
Well, yeah, I see, you know, it's like trying to do one thing, but then.
Yeah.
You have to import, right, from.
so that's it. Supplies everything.
Yeah.
In fact, I just emailed the company to kind of figure out a way to look at some other farms, see if we can get opportunities together. And pretty chippy.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, he wants to know. Yeah. But in fact, somebody asked, so I only want to buy your lettuce.
Our brand from Johnny. Still, yeah, still.
Imagine talking about food.
Oh my God, that's so big.
So yeah, so they grow aeroponically, germinate. Seedlings for 3 weeks. So that. And, yeah. Yeah, so once a week, harvest gas. So we, it's about. Website. Yep. Yeah, it's an order form. Usually it's best to make, we just harvested it. So I think that for Tuesday. My phone.
One thousand to the row, this one row, yeah, the other is like this office.
If you were to do this on a farm, how much? So yeah, that's what I would show everybody was, we've been trying to pitch to everybody. At least about a 5,000 square foot greenhouse instead of indoor farm, and I'll show you why. And that would be able to produce about 3,000 acres of lettuce. So that's our projection based on sustainability. Are you a food scientist? I'm a plant physiologist.
So conceivably, you could have more, if you go taller and go up.
Yeah, in fact, the system I'm going to show you is 20 feet high.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so it's about 8 foot.
Yeah.
So this is the lettuces that we just were looking at. So I can show you real quick. It has almost no core. It's all leaf. So go over to try that. Let's just pick just like 15 minutes. Is that just a variety? Yeah, it's a Salanova. It's a variety that's bred to be really small for. Thank you. Yeah, as I said, with the plug on to stay fresh. These are some of the microgreens that we grow. So this is micromix, which is what cabbages. There's some really great spicy arugula. That one is broccoli. That one is the pea shoots. That's it on. But the arugula is really spicy. Like a really like. We have one full time and 4 part time. So about 2.5 to 3. It's good. This is an ice plant. So it looks really dramatic. It looks like it has ice crystals on the surface.
Like I'm putting that outside the ground cover of my.
But it's salt.
And where would this be sold?
So that one right now is still, it's only restaurants. We'll have it at the market every once in a while. But we're trying to expand the production. So the first one is going to be just ice plant. Yeah. Yeah. So
ocean.
yeah, so it actually is adapted for desert and beach environments. So you can absorb salt right from the soil and put it in these little cells on the surface and keep growing effectively. So yeah, we're trying to wrap this up. We have it at farmers markets and once in a while. Like right now the restaurants are taking it on. So you'll hit sushi will serve this and MW serves to the game. And Kahala is using it on one of their monthly menus right now. So we're trying to get it out there. And we're trying Chef Colin Masama is interested to take it for his catering.
So for Kahala, would they say Metro Pro?
I think he was putting it on the menu. So he doesn't use it all the time. We supply some other things to him too. But he had a special menu a couple months ago and this month.
So I guess, you know, the benefits with this type of farming is one, labor. And
Yeah.
and technically you can have people working at, you know, like
Yeah.
a graveyard shift if
Yeah.
they feel like, it,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And it's relatively safe. And then, 'cause labor is probably gonna be more challenging than people realize.
Yeah.
In the future,
Yeah.
like no one's talking about it, but it's.
Yeah, we were just talking about today, some of the restaurants that we serve and other restaurants and that we can't take care of each other because of conflict of labor.
Yeah.
Luckily, you know, we've been pretty lucky with that. It's our operation, but that exactly what you're saying. I'll tell them. You want to come earlier, you want to come later, that's fine because times can't tell time.
Yeah.
So okay with that. As long as I can make the do this.
Right.
As ice cold, because all the farms here are getting greedy.
Yeah, so far we only hired people from Hawaii. And again, you know, it's not field laborers, so it's a different kind.
I'm joking, but
Yeah.
unfortunately, I think that they got like farms.
Oh, yeah. So most of our workers are younger. A lot of them are graduates from CETA.
Oh, nice.
So almost everybody has some.
Why did you do this?
Plant physiologist, love to eat, love tech. I used to be also other job, academic director at Shanghai. So we sort of like, how can I combine all those things together?
Are you local?
Yeah. So I had high school, University of Hawaii, and UC Davis from my graduate. So yeah, so it's a love eating progress. That exactly.
Is, do you have, because we're economic revitalization.
Sure.
Right, so I'm trying to think of, how the work that we're doing and things we're considering plays into this. I thought, think about the conversation we had earlier today about, you know, TOD developments and access to greens and food along.
Yeah, I've been actually working with OER, when Dexter Shido is here. We applied for some grants for the urban agriculture grant, which unfortunately we didn't get, but we had exactly what they were looking for. So again, my idea of expanding this is, and what we found, we've been doing this for 10 years now. And so it grows anything, it works fantastically, but it's expensive. Yeah, so if you're trying to grow something that we say is a commodity crop, like lettuce head, actually it's probably low end. It just doesn't work right now. And
So it's cheaper to grow traditional.
yeah, still cheaper to grow. And then, so the biggest thing for me is rent.
Yeah.
So, you know, can we find the space that, and when I start talking to people, our land lease went up to $400 per month. And it's only per year or something like that, so, it's like, whoa, I'm paying like 10 times that.
But so we just had a conversation about underutilized city buildings and if the whole idea is that they don't necessarily are gonna have people to market rent. To me, when we talk about entrepreneurship, yeah, I love the little makers and the startups, but this is actually proven and done, and the benefits of them having a low monthly lease in an urban center, fresh water, all of that, to me, makes more sense.
And that, that was that sort of argument. So, I thought, well, okay, I'm gonna pay the rent. I didn't realize how cheap, but getting expensive agriculture is. But and I kind of hesitated to well, we want to see the ag for the outdoor farming because we're not going to replace outdoor farming, but we can grow anywhere.
Right. I think it's actually safer. Outdoor farming has its own issues too, with the grading, like the labor, theft, all of that. And then
Infrastructure is not great.
Limited land, limited water source too,
Yeah.
because you've got R1 water now that's seeping into everything, and it's interesting, right? People are not necessarily talking about that.
Yeah.
So a lot of the agricultural land with R1, probably tree crops are better, vegetables are challenging, right? Why would you grow vegetables with R1 water? You can't,
But
so-
yeah, that's why people kind of get lulled into this false sense of security of that. Put the water in Hawaii, it rains all the time. And when they'll say, well, that's not gonna be the case forever. We don't have much pressure on it. That's how we try to spark you cycling. Use very little water now. But yeah, I think that's definitely so the land site, then of course, and so solar helps, but even with the whole, if I did the whole roof, and we're almost going in, still only like about a third of the water. So those two, and then labor again, I think we were still less than the farm.
The flexibility and I think the opportunity.
Yeah.
For people to participate if they want to do farming on a part-time.
Yeah.
You have much more of an availability to it.
And then my usual line when I try to keep people is only air conditioned farm.
Yeah.
Is it profitable? No. So we're getting closer every year.
How do you sustain it?
Helpful wife. And,
It's a profit.
yeah, it's a for-profit. It's something we ask. Are you a nonprofit or not?
You don't pay yourself a salary.
So it's been like long.
Savings.
Yeah. Should probably shouldn't say this, but I do the Donald Trump method. So LLC is in a member, so pass through and take losses here. So
You can't live on losses.
yeah. So I got some state pension, social security. So right now, but yeah, this can only be
Getting closer.
Couple more years.
Because I think for the city to support the business, there has to be an exit strategy. Yeah, because it's not gonna be life support forever.
No.
So if they were to give you a deal on rent, let's say,
Yeah.
would you have a plan to be able to get off of that?
Off of the rent.
Off of the low rent? Because,
Not we buy the model. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's so, does that allow you to grow to a
Sure.
point where you don't need that?
Right. Well, I'm hoping, when we looked at that, and that's why I talked to them when they're on the state, these are underutilized lands that we wouldn't ever get to them right away. So what I'm not saying give it to do forever, but what is it worth? Like, for example, one of the spots that I was always looking at is I go to chef, I used to do a chef zone, and the rail lines that are good.
Yeah.
That's a goes across the parking lot. People, nobody can build under that rail line on the parking lot. And I found out that airports the region passing. So I reached out to my neighbor. So, oh, well, we got some plans for it. And that's what community always told me, we have plans for that piece of property. But I've identified it. I've identified city properties too. Next to the Children's Museum, there's a little parking lot. It's good. So they told me EMS. But that's kind of things they would never get parking for. So, yeah, I would look down that far.
But the urban proximity, I think, is important because that's part of the benefits of, right?
Well, so the farms on the continent that are doing this at a larger scale, they kind of go through this very urban philosophy. So if you're producing large amounts, then you're gonna ship around anyway, or or move to storage solar, then you don't have to be right in the heart
Right.
of town, but maybe really long, quite long,
Right.
you get, much shorter just traffic and stuff. So
Right.
things on the periphery, I think, were maybe a little bit more reasonable. For us, when I started looking, this was maybe 20, 25 cents a square foot more at the time. And because we wanted to be close to the restaurants and chefs could come by and pick up stuff, we said, okay, that's worth it. But as we get to scale, I think, yeah, probably looking at something. I think the energy, if we get that down, which we have proposals for. If I didn't have, or at least I have a reasonable rent, I think we. So that's the, there's been a lot of downturn, there are some successful ones, but a lot of them are not. When they came in, a lot of the investors and a lot of them came in as if they thought this was gonna be a tech. So they came in and said, oh, we're gonna throw all this money, we're gonna have all these robotics, and we so automated, that's a bunch of. But all in, then we found out, okay, we got to just build some. So a lot of us have failed, I think not so much operationally, but investors went in thinking we're gonna get money back in 2 or 3 years. And I have done my business plans, so.
Yeah.
I'm looking at 8, 9 years before you get sort of consistent actually, because it's ad. It's not tech.
Is there a product you're looking at that?
So that's what people are saying, you want the hard margin, but then the market's not big enough. So what we had targeted in our presentations was to look at institutional customers at the DOE. So they need leafy greens. And they say, well, we don't, it's hard to work with small farms because it's not consistent, we don't know what the weather's gonna be like, especially north, it's just a model. And Donovan Cruz is always talking about regional kitchens. And then he even had a drawing us somewhere, put a greenhouse next to the regional kitchen. So this kind of.
We have gained different things that are.
Oh, yeah, yeah, so Dane's in here, I've fixed this together. So I gotta talk to him again, that's what, that's quite a customer, so. Again, it's not a high margin crop, but something where you have, there's a big demand and a great customer. And then that same institutional marketing hotels. And so can we do, outdoor farms with leafy greens too, but again, consistency is the problem. And maybe they'd be better off doing a plant, fruity crops that take a little bit longer, that maybe need more space. I believe smaller things to.
You know, the thing is too, so as we, agriculture always comes into play. Every administration, but I think the hard fact is, and they're trying to get younger people to come in.
Yeah.
The fact that you can't pay yourself is an issue, and yet they're talking about, oh, every business needs to pay a livable wage.
Yeah.
And yet you have the entrepreneurs that it's a labor of love, and they're doing it, and we're not able to pay ourselves a livable wage. And I think that has to be some part of the conversation, like a realistic conversation instead of like, oh, look at how wonderful, everybody goes farming, everybody does this is what we want. But you're the reality and you have a solution. And then I think this is tight, because it's provided.
I heard that clearly, like, when I was interviewed for 2022, we talked about farming, I said, you can help with services or not, but it's not that we attract it to anybody unless they can make good money.
Yeah.
And so you should figure out how to make good money.
Yes.
Maybe it's subsidizing them, like the US federal government does that. If you really believe it and you can invest in it, and say, or if we're gonna make it profitable.
Free rent.
Or like, hey, or something, but they just provide service, tobacco is subsidized, yeah, orange is subsidized,
Well, that's
You guys not grow corn to get a subsidy.
yeah, that's the ironic, it's all the big farms that get a subsidy.
I'm not, you qualified, you're not, no?
Well,
So unfortunately, we have to adjourn because of overtime.
yeah.
We have to officially adjourn. I get a motion to. Motion to adjourn. All right, thank you so much. Thank you. I have to.
I had a little 3 minutes to show you a little something in the front, a little bit, how we're to.
Has the little poor guys come down?
Yeah, actually, yes, yes.
Gavin, Gavin, can I end this? Can I end this? This is adjourned, right? Keep going, okay. We're so transparent.
Thank you for live streaming.
Of course, thank you guys.
She's still going. So yeah, well, we just talked about, what are the challenges that we have here in Hawaii, the real estate, energy, capital expenditures, labor, supply costs. So these are, common with every farm, especially here in Hawaii.
Yes.
So what we said, well, how can we tackle that? We need to lower expenses, but increase our productivity. So this is the new kind of system that we're looking at. So these are the vertical towers I was telling you about. So this one is 20 feet, they go up to 30 feet high, that way. And what it is a fancy Ferris wheel. So this is an A-frame. Yeah. So it rotates this way, around this way. And that way you don't have to provide as much artificial power.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
On the top. So this is in a greenhouse. So you get sunlight all the time. By doing this, you get even amounts of sunlight every there. And then down here at the bottom, this is a water wheel. So they have a water pump and a big reservoir. So the water gets pumped down this wheel that makes it spin. And then as the trays pass the bottom of the power, there's a valve that opens and it irrigates. So you get all in one. So very energy efficient. Lighting goes down. The cost to move things around goes down. Labor actually goes down. People don't think about this, but because the trays move to the harvester, you don't have to go up and bring all these things down, which a lot of vertical farms have to do. So the thing just rotates down to you, just pull it out, find the next batch. So this is from a company called Sky Green in Singapore. So that's what we're basing our model on. And of course, again, to do it in a greenhouse environment makes a lot of sense to us.
Sorry, I have to run and
Okay.
jump onto quick response meetings. Thank you so
Oh, yeah,
much. It
sure.
was very.
So we want to do this in a greenhouse building. This is a special kind of pretty and tight environmentally controlled fabric tension building that can be used as a greenhouse. Translucent fabric for it. So you can still control the environment, but you have the sunlight in. The other thing we're looking at is to use solar tubes to bring light in. So again, really cut down on the lighting. We're looking at other alternative energies, more solar panels. We have big enough space. We've been playing around with this anaerobic digester, which I think they have in the Side Island sewage treatment. So you take organic waste and you produce methane, and the methane can be burned for more energy. And then the liquid that's left over is actually an organic fertilizer.
It's kind of what our stomachs do.
Yeah. So we actually, yeah, exactly. Let's prove, how can we prove that this could work? So Upono was nice enough to donate half of the funding for this project. DOE funded the other half, and we're providing all the technical expertise. So we built this greenhouse at Kamiki High School. It's operational right now. It's 400 square feet. Huh?
This place is pickleball?
Yeah, tennis. We have 4 tennis courts. They hardly used it. Although the AV was kind of like, yeah, we want to do pickleball. But they still got 3 courts, so they're okay with it. So we're running at half of the tennis court. So 400 square feet, and so we got 2 of these towers, a shorter version, this is only 10 feet. With same water wheel, and then this is the lettuce here. We just, I think we just did about like 10 harvests already. So we were producing 120 heads a week from 1 10-foot tower.
And then because it's outdoors, you don't need artificial light.
No, we haven't put any light in. The only thing is it's super hot, but this lettuce seems to be tolerant. So we're okay.
So the Singaporean company that's like shipped you all the components.
So actually, yeah, they have a subsidiary in Canada. So the Canada guys brought it over to us. So they had some spares because usually they want to sell a bunch at a time, but they had some extras, so that's why they were able to give us a pretty good deal. And they came down and helped us install it at the greenhouse. And so what I was wondering, okay, how energy efficient is this? And so, good or bad, the school couldn't provide us electricity because their infrastructure is so bad. So I have to actually go out and get like a solar generator. And so we're running it off of 3 solar panels right now. And the thing's running fine. The pump, and that's really only electricity we need right now. And it's about 200 watts. It's super efficient, yeah, for 1 tower. We have the other tower, so it might go up a little bit, but it's still gonna be very efficient. So we're pretty uses the lettuce in there. So right now, they're teachers are buying it all. Students are the ones harvesting, learning how to collect the data on it. They're gonna give some to Honolulu Chinese Home, I think, or Senior Center. But the idea is we got actually one of the state micro grants for food security. So we're gonna distribute some for the community. Except students and teachers are buying it. They have a website themselves. They're underselling because they have a free land. But same lettuce that we're growing. Just try it. And so far, it's pretty comparable in weight. We're weighing ours, they're weighing theirs. So we're pretty happy with the productivity so far. So in this case, it's growing in just pioneers. And then it gets irrigated underneath and so absorbs the water. So it's not pure hydroponic right now. But yeah, that's what we want to see is, can we find 5,000 square feet of greenhouse space? And some extra for the energy stuff. Would have to be on the wall. Yeah, in fact, neighbor island people, obviously the market is here. And if we're talking DOE, state, but it could be anywhere.
What does it cost to construct that?
So we are looking at the big plan with everything in it and the full business plan. It's about 3 million.
Not for that one, that's a.
Well, this one was to build the greenhouse and everything inside of it. We spent 30,000.
Okay, but the big one that you want to build.
Yeah, it would be once hire people and construction. We're estimating about 3 million.
Is that your next phase to
Yeah.
go for that?
So that's the business plan we wrote up for. We participated in the Mahiai matchup coming up in. So got to the finals, but we didn't win. So I try and keep in touch with them and say, hey, this story. And they said the same thing. Where's your site? Well, I was hoping you guys tell me where your site is. Yeah, that's what we keep talking to the city and state.
Have you considered raising money from investors?
Yeah, that's where we built the business plan. Yeah, we don't know exactly the pitch right now. So that's why this was built with the idea that now that it's in operation, I'm going to start bringing people. So I got to get Jesse out there first. Since they backed it. And start seeing who else we can talk to. I want to talk to Dave. Since again, this is kind of what they're thinking about with the regional kitchen concept. So yeah, I'm glad I came. Right?
Thanks, Jerry.
Let us know if you need anything.
Order on Thursday.
Yeah,
There you go.
yeah.
You can start with that. Farmers market, Blaisdell, Wednesday afternoons and Saturday.
So what is it typically like for a Thursday pickup? You have like a package deal?
So you can buy this 2 packs of lettuce, you can buy everything's kind of individual actually. Yeah. So it's not CSA or surprise as soon as you get it. We're pretty consistent with all of that. We're gonna have lettuce, we're gonna have maple beans. Right now, we're still cleaning up the website, but some things we just kind of stopped selling because as mentioned, most of the ones that are culinary, most people are not interested in like in chervil, sorrel, exotic things. But when the pandemic came and we had to switch to this selling online, we started doing the broccoli and the kale. So consumers are more interested in health benefits,